Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining in from. I hope you're good. It's a lovely day today here, and I'm excited to have you on the call. Kindly confirm if you can hear me. You can type in one. Let me be sure I'm not speaking to myself alone. So type in one in the chat box so I can know I'm not speaking to myself alone. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Again, we're all welcome to today's section. It's the Teach for SDG. We are gradually progressing. My name is Ayokunle Aziz, and I'm a program associate with the AIIDEV Africa. And I'm very much excited to be moderating today's section. First, I would like to congratulate us and appreciate as many educators and participants who has taking their time to follow with the sections. I mean, for those who have been faithful, well done, well done. We are gradually coming to the end of the sections, and I believe we've been learning. I believe learning archive has been improved or increased, so to speak. However, we appreciate your commitment and your time. So today's sections will be is very interesting because we'll be looking at a very interesting topic. Speaker for today, we have Madam Deborah Edward, who will be taking us through circular economy and sustainable waste management. Madam Deborah has been navigating the dynamic realm of communication for good 4 years. A journey marked by a blend of delight and challenge, from collaborative team efforts spanning diverse industries to charting strategic roadmaps for beginning startups. Her trajectory has been a testament to constant growth and evolving expertise in content creations. Recently, she assumed the role of strategic communication and partnership at Circular Economy Innovation Partnership, the CEIP. Deborah finds herself immersed in the transformative landscape of circularity. For her, circularity embodies the ethos of closing loop, fostering cross-section collaborations and embracing long-term thinking. Deborah's journey continued to unfold, driven by a passion for sustainability and a commitment to fostering impactful change in the communication and circular economy sphere. With a virtual clap, I want us to welcome Madam Deborah Edward. Madam Deborah, you're welcome. Over to you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Good evening, everyone. I'm so humbled and excited to be in a room full of teachers. I also have some teaching experience, so I think I taught maybe like 2 years thereabout, way back. But then, yes, it's a privilege to be in a room full of people who are shaping the minds of the younger generation. Well, thank you for that compliment. I really appreciate that. So I will get into the session for today. So I just want to share my screen with you. Okay. I want to believe that you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it very clear.
Okay, awesome. Sorry, just okay. Yes. Okay. To get started, I don't know if we've heard about circular economy before, but today's session we're going to be looking at circular economy and sustainable waste management. And what I've done today is I've done a mixture. So I'll be talking, and at some point I'll be sharing video content with you, just to make it more, just so that you could have like different perspectives, so that it won't be only me that is engaging with you. And so right about now, we'll be starting the first video. And this one is about circular economy, just talks about what circular economy is. It's about 4 minutes. Once it's done, I'll just get started and share more light. Thank you.
Climate change is a given. For decades, our booming consumption of natural resources and the use of raw materials are on a dangerous and unsustainable track.
Okay, so I need a confirmation that you can hear very clearly.
Yes, it's very audible and good to go.
The Earth's ecosystems have started to show signs of serious stress. Climate change.
Hello?
Hello?
Okay.
Did you stop the
Can
video?
you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't pause the video. I think I'm having...
It actually stopped.
Okay. So I'll try sharing again. I don't know if you can see the screen.
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay.
Climate change is a given. For decades, our booming consumption of natural resources and the use of raw materials are on a dangerous and unsustainable track. The Earth's ecosystems have started to show signs of serious stress. Climate change, biodiversity losses, or land degradation are just some examples. Human activity cannot continue on the same pathway in a linear economy. In short, the linear model that became dominant after the first industrial revolution is not sustainable, and we are using more resources than we and the planet can regenerate. The necessity to conserve Earth's resources seems to have been lost. There's no denying the benefits in terms of unparalleled variety and consumer choice. But there's now general consensus that change is needed to avoid permanent damage to the planet and its limited resources. The circular economy is said to be a solution and an opportunity to provide better services to consumers, while also tackling core sustainability challenges, resource scarcity, and environmental degradation. In a circular economy, raw materials are used efficiently and for as long as possible. When material and product loops are closed, raw materials can carry on being reused. In the best case, no further sourcing of raw materials needs to happen anymore. This benefits both the environment and the economy. Circular economy supports sustainable development by aiming to secure the resources to sustain our current and future generations. This is achieved by minimizing resource inputs and waste, emission, and energy leakage of products over time using 4 distinct strategies: narrowing, closing, slowing, and regenerating resource loops. These strategies are outlined as narrowing, decreasing material and energy use per product; closing, ensuring both production material and resources and the finished product can be and are recycled; slowing, consuming less and using products for longer over time; regenerating, cleaner loops and organizations contributing to leaving the environment in a better state than how it was found. The different circular strategies present promising opportunities to build more resilient economies and societies, and organizations are already applying these strategies. For example, an organization has developed a process that is sustainable, biodegradable, and chemical-free. The idea is to avoid plastic and use agricultural residues to make sustainable products, such as disposable tableware. The residues are turned into self-binding fibers that do not require massive use of chemicals and water, creating a concept that can be applied almost everywhere. Another example for a circular strategy is the one of Kalundborg, a city in Denmark. The Kalundborg Eco-Industrial Park is an industrial symbiosis network in which companies in the region collaborate to use each other's byproducts and otherwise share resources. Whatever definition you choose, a circular economy is the alternative to the linear economic system that still predominates. Circularity offers a win-win situation with potential benefits and rewards at many levels. Circular solutions open the access to new markets, and value is created through potential new circular products and services. services that often also generate higher margins in comparison to resource-heavy offerings. Circular economy is a way of being ahead of the curve, avoiding future regulatory pressure, reducing regulatory risks, and increasing the trust of consumers and business partners. And it is a chance to keep up with general sustainability trends and requirements and become a front runner in a globally growing market.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, thank you for watching the video along with me. I'm sure that you probably have a lot of questions even with the video, so I'll do my best to address some of those things as we go along the session. So the session again is circular economy and sustainable waste management. And that begs the question, what is circular economy? What are the benefits of circular economy? How does it apply to you and I? As well as what is sustainable waste management? And how do all these things come together at the end of the day? Now, first, let's look at what circular economy is. Now, circular economy is something that I like to say is strictly about designing out waste. What does that mean? We have different types of waste, as we would see as the session goes on. But we find that in circular economy, the essence is to figure out a way that we can design out waste completely from the ecosystem. How? In a typical society of today, what we have is that we take, we make, and then we waste, or we dispose of those items. How do I mean? So for example, you plant a crop. When you plant the crop, you harvest the crop. When you harvest the crop, you typically eat the crop or package the crop. You sell, and then once you are done, the packaging materials and so on and so forth, you dispose of them. But now in circular economy, you are forced to think about how can you address issues. So how can you take items from nature? How can you make things with them? And at the end of the day, how can you keep reusing those items without necessarily wasting them? This does not mean that you won't have something like waste. Rather, circular economy forces you to think about it and say, rather than thinking about these things as waste, how can those things be thought about as resources? I don't know if you're able to follow me. So circular economy is an economic model that is solely concentrated on minimizing waste or designing out waste and maximizing resource efficiency. And how did this issue come about? It came about because it was realized that a lot of the activities that mankind, that is we carry out, was causing more harm than good. That is to say that a lot of the things that we did were not restorative in nature. It meant that the more we took things, the less we did to ensure that those things that we took out of nature were fitted back or were fixed back. Yes, today we have things where you plant trees, as a way to correct issues, but you find that had it been that this action started way longer, it would have been easier today. So circular economy has come as a solution or a panacea to say that, okay, this is a way we can do it and ensure that, we are able to make, design out waste and also maximize resource efficiency. Let's quickly look at some of the key principles of circular economy, otherwise it will be sort of like a buzzword. One of the things I've mentioned a lot is design. And in circular economy, what you are designing for is longevity and durability. Now, in some people's mind, they will be thinking, oh, it means that this particular thing relies on only the producer. Yes, the producer is involved, but then beyond the producer, also the consumer, that is you and I, the kids we teach, their parents, and so on and so forth, they are also consumers of this product. How does it work for the producers, first of all? Now, for the producer, in circular economy, they begin to think about how can I make products and services that will last very long. And even at the point where they are lasting very long, when we finish with those products and services, what am I going to set up so that I can reuse that particular item again, maybe as a raw material, or give it as a resource to somebody else who is utilizing that particular thing for their own production process. That's from the standpoint of the producer. So you have things where, and I'm sure you agree with me, so you have things where, for example, you make No, I'm sure yes, this is the example I wanted to give. So a lot of people will agree with me that back then you would have some plates and some tableware that you would see that they were lasting for many years. However, today you find some metal spoons, for example, and they bend very, very quickly. So I have a spoon in my house that bends very quickly. And the lifespan of that particular spoon is like a year. Whereas my mom would show me something that she has kept for so many years. There's even a basin that she has that probably was given to her at the point where she got married, and it's still very durable today. That's over how many years? Over 20 years now. It's still durable today. But you find that producers today tend to want to take a lot of shortcuts and don't design products that will last or stand the test of time. So producers in circular economy are encouraged to design things that will last long, because these resources that they are using are finite in nature, while the consumer is asked to what? To go to the market or to go and begin to look at things from the standpoint of how long will these things last for me? And do I really need these things that I'm getting right now? Or is there an alternative to me owning this particular product? I'll give another example that I like here. For those of us who have seen where they do parties, they have these very giant cooking pots that they use. We call them igele. I don't know what some other cultures call them. Very, very giant pots that they use to prepare food. And I found that not everybody in their homes has that particular size of pot. It's very big. It can cook almost like a half bag of rice or one bag of rice. Yes, half bag of rice. Not everybody has this particular pot at home. Why? Because you don't necessarily need to have that pot if you don't have use for it. So in that particular situation, somebody that buys that pot probably should have use for it, or is probably thinking of starting a service or a business where that particular pot will be used or rented out to people. So they rent it from you and then they pay a particular sum of money. Or an even simpler one, canopy and chairs. How many of us have canopy and chairs in our houses and do not run an event business? Very few of us do that. So that's how you look at it from the consumer standpoint. How do I get only things that I need as a consumer? And then as a producer, you say, how do I produce things that stand the test of time? How do we teach this to our children? We teach them because these ones are the future leaders of tomorrow. They're the ones that are going to go out into society and say, yes, I want to be an entrepreneur, or yes, I want to work in an engineering firm, or yes, I want to be a lawyer, and so on and so forth. So we teach them to say that at the point where you grow, or at the point where you consider a business, you need to consider, how do I design whatever it is that I'm going to give back to people to stand the test of time? And on the other hand, how do I make sure that me, my family, and those connected to me only take resources that are useful for them? Let's move on to resource efficiency. Resource efficiency under circular economy means that you optimize the way you use the you use the materials and energy for making things. So it means that even as you are designing the products and services, whatever you are going to put into making that product and service, you need to consider it very well. Am I going to waste resources? Is this thing going to have an environmental impact? We find a lot of people do a lot of things. I'll give you another example, and I'm sorry that it's coming a lot from the, I won't say kitchen, but from those that do a lot of event management. So we find that a lot of times we have our mothers in times past, and some people still do it today, where we use a lot of firewood to fry gari or to fry granite and things like that. Now, yes, gari is a very wonderful product. Granite is a very wonderful product, but in the process of producing that output, if you watch very closely, that firewood that is being used as an energy source is having a negative impact on the environment. Now, circular economy comes to say, okay, how can we find an alternative energy source for production that does not necessarily impact the environment? Or how best can we minimize the impact that is being made by these items? So that is one other angle for that. So I see a lot of people raising their hands. Okay, so what will happen is, in between the session, because it's a very long session, I'll give you time to ask the questions that you might have, and then we'll continue again. So I hope that works for you. Just note down your questions on a sheet of paper or something, and then we'll just go from there. So another one is circular business model, which is what I've explained already, where you have a situation where you are leasing or you are sharing products. So it means that you don't necessarily need to own everything. You can, you can take a sharing service or a leasing service or you can develop the business model that shares or leases to people. I'm going to use wedding gown. I do not know why my mind is going to events. Apologies. So I'm going to use wedding gowns for example. Of course, nearly everybody, and suits. So nearly everybody would like to, be very well dressed for events, or yes, it applies to everyone, for events or for parties. But then you find that an alternative, if you're going to wear something just once and throw it away, isn't that wasteful? Isn't that contributing in some ways to negatively to the environment? Why don't you say, okay, I want to find a way that either I rent the gown that I'm using from a wonderful business person, or whenever I'm making that particular clothing item, I ensure that it is not for a single use only. Now, circular economy begs those questions because those things are essential in making sure that what we do is design out waste. So at every point in time, you are thinking, how can I set up things in place? How can I set up systems and structures that allow me to be able to say, okay, there's no waste in this thing. Anything that comes out as my output is useful for another person as an input. Now, I think we have 3 more or 2 more. Yes. Okay, so we have 3 more key principles of circular economy, and we're going to move to something else. Waste reduction. As a key principle of circular economy, waste reduction means that you reduce waste. Most of the things I'm saying are sort of repetitive in nature. That's because everything I've learned is sort of interconnected. It's circular, so it's about closing the loop. So at some point, I can give you examples that will cancel out the other point. So it's still related. So when we talk about waste reduction, we still talk about the whole process from start to finish. How do you look at the product and how do you look at the consumer end? Now, regenerate nature. This is very interesting. Like we said before, take, make, and waste is a linear economy. But for circular economy, you are thinking take, make, use. If possible, recycle, refurbish, and still use again. That's sort of how circular economy works. And where circular economy draws a lot from is from nature. Nature has a wonderful principle, or it has a wonderful means of working, where you find that everything is connected. So if you have you have the soil, for example, you find that the chicken typically scratches the soil looking for worms and things like that. The worms in the soil are contributing some nutrients and breaking down the soil itself to provide nutrients to the soil. The chicken eats the, what's it called? Yeah, it eats the worm. And then we typically in our homes kill the chicken and used to eat something very nice. That's just by the way. And then we go, we dispose either the feathers and so on and so forth, compost it. And like that, the whole circle continues. Now, this is typically a natural process. But when we do things where we just take it and make it and then throw it into landfills, we've broken that circle. So in circular economy, you are looking at how can we regenerate nature? 1, by learning from nature, and 2, by ensuring that the practices that we carry out actually have a positive effect on nature. And typically, there are 3 ways we look at this. So we look at it from an academic standpoint, where you combine the different methods of agriculture. So you have things like sustainable agriculture, you have things like industrial agriculture, you have things like organic practices. You combine different models of agriculture or different processes of agriculture, and then you look for which one is optimal for a particular time in question. That's one of the ways you could do that. Or you just practice conservative agriculture, where you say, okay, we're going to look at the soil health, we're going to look at all these other processes and see what is the best way for us to manage the soil, to manage the earth's surface, so that we do not cause any negative effect to the environment. And then this is not by any way the last principle of circular economy, but it's just one of those ones that we need to pay attention to, which is consumer awareness and engagement. How? We're talking about circular economy now. It's sort of new. We've been practicing it already, but at some point we have shifted our minds. How do I mean? A lot of times in the past, you find that you buy things in bulk, you buy things that you only need, or you you manage the way you carry out your practices. But nowadays, I don't know if it's the pressure from external sources or the need to prove something inherently. It has made a lot of people shift the practices that were good for nature to practices that are sort of harmful for nature. So what we do with circular economy is we still raise that awareness and engage with consumers, engage with people, engage with the public generally, and say, these are the choices you can make that are better suited for the environment and for the planet at large, as opposed to the other choices that you could make that are damaging or negative to the environment. Now, we've talked about the principles a lot. Let me quickly go back and just list them. We talked about design for longevity and durability, resource efficiency, circular business model, waste reduction, regenerate nature, consumer awareness and engagement. But then what are the benefits of circular economy? How does it benefit you and I? Circular economy benefits can be categorized into environmental, economic, and social benefits. Means that when it comes to money, circular economy is sort of profitable. When it comes to society at large, circular economy is beneficial. When it comes to the environment, which I've mentioned a lot of, it's also beneficial. In what ways? Reducing greenhouse gas emission. And I heard somebody mention it, that you were taught something around that last week, which is very, very good. Circular economy actually plays a very important role to this aspect, because you are talking about designing out waste from the whole system. It means that you are looking at a way that the things we'll typically call waste products are the actual materials, are the raw materials you use in making things. And I'm going to give you an example shortly after this. And then we also have minimize resource depletion. So that process of always going back to say, okay, we need to start something with wood, for example. Okay, we need to make a pencil, for instance. That process of saying we need to go and cut down trees to make a pencil, it sort of eliminates it. How? I give you an example. We have somebody that we happen to know that makes pencils out of newspapers. Now, what that person has been able to do is take something that newspaper, you read it once, twice. Okay, you give it to the woman selling granite, or you use it. That was in the past. I don't know if people still do it. So you use it to keep the tabletops in your kitchen very neat when you have blacking pots. We no longer have blacking pots sometimes, I think. But you use those newspapers on your table to sort of prevent your tabletops from getting dirty and all that. Now, when you are done with all that, some people also use those newspapers to make paper mache. I know that this is one of the practices for children in schools. Now, you do all those things, you have leftover paper. There's a company that is willing and ready to take those newspapers and use them to make pencils. So in that regard, your waste product of newspaper that has been used becomes the raw material or the starting point for that particular venture. So they are now making pencils out of that particular item. That's an example of minimizing resource depletion. So instead of us going back every time to look for fresh raw materials or virgin resources, as it's called, you utilize the materials already in circulation as items for production. And then we have enhancing energy efficiency. How does that work? Energy is very important, and I've given an example of that already. Now, through the process, so whenever you are making items, you typically use a lot of energy source, either for extraction. So when you are doing mining of what's it called now? For example, when you are mining things like coal or aluminium, you use a lot of materials, you use a lot of energy sources to do the drilling and everything. However, in circular economy, aluminium is very, very recyclable. In circular economy, what happens is whenever you are now using the aluminium again, you don't necessarily need to use as much energy as was put into extracting it in the first place. So that's an example of how you enhance energy efficiency. So instead of spending so much to make the materials from scratch, you spend less to remake other items or to create new items from already existing materials. So that is all on the environmental side, or most of it on the environmental side. And then we have the economic side. So what are the benefits of circular economy for the economy, as it were? We now have situations where there are new business opportunities. How does this work? Because circular economy tells you that, okay, we need to look at new ways to design things. We need to look at new ways to package things that are safer, long-lasting, durable, and so on and so forth. It creates more business opportunities and partnerships. An example I like to give for this one is a company called Coconut Jam Jam. And how they have been able to do something very unique here is that they own a coconut plantation. Very interesting stuff. They own a coconut plantation. What they've done is that they've been able to say, okay, the husk from the coconut, when you are carving it out, we take that husk and we give it to somebody who creates fire starters. So that husk that would have been a waste product of the coconut company becomes the starting material for the fire starter company. Now they take the shell and say, okay, we have another organization that works with us or that at somewhere that uses coconut shells to make either scented candles or even buttons for your clothes. That's a very innovative way. Now, giving that to them, it creates like a new opportunity for them to do business. So they collaborate more and they have more partnerships. Then they say, okay, the coconut itself, we're going to make oils, we're going to make coconut candy, we're going to make shredded coconut flakes, the things that bakers use, and so on and so forth. At every single point in this journey, they've been able to create new business opportunities for themselves. That's just one of the ways. Another way is you have a lot of carpentry tools in your house, or you have a lot of materials that you say a drill, if you're a carpenter, a drill, or even best case, let's use a photographer, because we know these days a lot of people take a lot of pictures and they do a lot of videos and so on and so forth. You would agree with me that not every single photographer you see has all the equipment needed to do a standard photo shoot. What do they typically do? They either share or they rent those items. Now, yes, renting has existed since time immemorial, but the thing now is that we can begin to look at what else, what have we not considered before that we can use, or we can rent, we can share. What products can we use instead of a product and use it as a service? Those are some of the areas where we can say, okay, that new business opportunities have been generated. And of course, increased innovation and reduced cost. Innovation is everywhere. So how do we create new items from existing items? Circular economy forces that to come up. So we have people who want to be scientists, people who want to be technicians, begin to think of ways either to reduce the amount of energy that is used or to be creative about the kind of products or services that are created at the end of the day. So I'll talk about social, and I think I'm going to open the floor for just two people to ask questions that they have, and then we'll go right back into the session. Now, social benefits. We've talked about new business opportunity. Where there is new business opportunity, there are new jobs. That's typically how it works. In circular economy, you have things where you are repairing stuff or you are extending the life product of a particular item. That creates opportunities for people who are technicians, who are specialists in particular fields, to say, yes, this is a new job, or train people to take over the roles from them, and then improve community well-being. When you are able to reduce the amount of waste and the amount of pollution that happens, what this does for you is improve the quality of life of the people in that particular community. Those are some of the benefits that circular economy offers when it comes to societal or the social angle. So I said two people have already raised their hands. Let me see. So I have from Kaduna, Umar Farouk. Okay, so I'm going to do only two. Just save your questions. We have a 20-minute window at the end of the session to go through all the questions that you might have. So I said I'm going to take two. So Umar Farouk, I don't know, your hand is raised. Could you unmute and ask your question very quickly? Let me take that. Okay.
Yes, good evening, ma.
Good evening, sir.
How is work?
Okay.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
So
I can hear you.
go straight to your question, Uma, in 30 seconds. Please go straight to your question.
Okay, can you please hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Hello? Okay.
Hello, we can hear you.
Please, can you recommend, can you please recommend just 2 ways in which we can directly impact this knowledge you are sharing to us, to our learners, especially those in junior secondary school?
Okay. Okay, so I'll do that. Okay. So 2 ways you can directly impact this knowledge to them. So one of the ways you can do that, which would still also touch during the session, is we have something called upcycling of materials. So we have things like plastic waste, and plastic is one of the most talked about waste products today because it's almost everywhere, plastic bottles and so on and so forth. So we have something called upcycling, where you take the materials that typically do not compost or are not biodegradable. So I have a plastic bottle in my front now. So one of the things you could do to introduce to your students is find someone who knows how to use plastic bottles to make something else. And then through that example, you explain to them how circular economy works. So the plastic in this case now can be used to make a decorative piece in the house. I wish I had a picture I would have shown you, a decorative piece in the house. Or there is one that children in my area do. They make skipping ropes out of plastic. So when I open my plastic bottle here, there's a small tin, I don't know if it's a blocker at the lid. I found children that take these lids off several bottles and then weave it together to make a jump rope that they can use to skip. If it has different colors, they use it to make those Christmas decorations or festive decorations that they hang around the house. What that does is you show them that, okay, this particular item now, it would have been in its final state. When the producer made the bottle, it was not intending that you use it as a decorative piece in your house. But because you've seen that if we keep leaving the plastic laying around, it becomes harmful to the environment. You've taken that plastic and you've turned it into something that is decorative in your house. So for a student or for a young person, that is something innovative. You've taught them how to create something from waste. You've taught them that it is possible, and then you've also introduced circular economy to them. So we'll go through a lot of other things. I hope that sort of answers the question. The second person, I don't know, very quickly, 30 seconds. Let's have Ogun Oluwaseyi. Okay, Ogun Oluwaseyi. I think you're from Ogun State. You can unmute yourself.
Yes,
Okay.
good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Yeah. My question is on the design for longevity and durability.
Yes.
Like a mention of a spoon, tablespoon,
Yes.
that we have produced some years back, and that spoon is still strong. But presently now, those spoons we are having now, they are very so light to the extent that even a child, a year-old child, can easily bend them. So my question now is, what is the work or the duty of SON as in the standard organization of Nigeria? What are they doing in that area? So that we can have some product that can last forever. And also, what is the roles of the SDGs on this aspect as well?
Okay, wonderful question. Thank you so much for that. So with regards to what SON does, Standard Organization of Nigeria, now they give principles and they give regulations as to what things should look like. That's for Nigeria, or the properties that things should constitute. But we find that a lot of times in Nigeria, the systems or the processes are not, how do we put it? So we have a lot of issues with our systems and processes and implementation or enforcement of laws. So I want to believe that they actually have regulations concerning what a particular product that is coming out should look like. However, because we find that a lot of Nigerian people will opt for maybe a cheaper option, or will opt for something that doesn't really cost them so much. You find a lot of people patronizing these particular sources. That's on one end. Number two is the part of, I'd like to say, the manufacturer choosing the option that provides more money for them, because it's a business. So most of the time, business people think of, oh, how can I make more profits? Even if it means I have to cut corners. Not everyone does that, but some people do that. So if you look at it from that standpoint, you now find that, okay, we need more implementers. We need more people to implement and enforce their policies and say that this particular corners that you're cutting is not allowed with line to circular economy or with line to making things durable. That's number one. Number two, rather. Then I think you asked another question that I'll try to be very fast about, which is making product. You didn't ask, you said make products last forever. I don't think it's possible to make any product last forever. However, I think it's possible to make products last for a particular amount of time and then to recall them as the manufacturer. So in the case of the plastics, the bending spoons, let's imagine those products are made with, say, let's just give them the grace and say 5 years warranty, or 5 years lasting time, or 5 years in circulation. We typically would advise that business people begin to say, okay, we are selling these things out for 5 years. At the end of the 5 years, let's have a recall policy. So the recall policy would be that once you are done with this, your 5 years, come and drop your spoons, your metals. We have it for e-waste as well. Come and drop your e-waste, that's your phones, your devices, your electronics that are spoiled, in this particular collection center. And we would take it, dismantle it, and use it to make another product. Now, that's one way we can look at it and say that, you know, this is something that can be done for items that are being produced. There's a lot of catching up to do. Like I said, circular economy is sort of new. We are doing it, but we're still well on our way to getting to that finish line. It doesn't happen in one day. But these are some of the things that would say, okay, new businesses that are coming up, begin to look at how you can have a recall policy so that you get materials you can reuse to make new products. And at the same time, existing businesses, because they've gotten away with doing what they want for a very long time, we now need those policy makers to say, okay, we have implementers, we have enforcers in the grassroots or in the field to call them out and say, we need you to begin to set up this kind of, is it systems or means to call back your products. I hope that sort of answers your question. I feel like as we continue to go on, you'll begin to see some of the answers to the questions that you have already in the content. So let's move on very quickly to case studies. So this case studies is where very, very quickly, because our time is fast spent already, we're going to say, okay, different sectors, because there are so many sectors that exist. How have they been able to apply circular economy as at now? Or how have they been able to apply some of the processes as of today? For example, in the food sector, I've mentioned already the coconut company, where they make their coconut chips and coconut flakes, but also are able to say, okay, scented candles from the material, fire starters, and so on. We also have something called a glass recycling company called AIIDEV Glass. And what they do is they take glass, so broken bottles from your soft drinks or broken bottles from soft drinks, or even glass cups and things in the house. They take all these items and remelt them through their processes and then make new items out of it. So they could either make glassware that you could use in your homes as decorative pieces, or even items that you can use to still carry out day-to-day activities. So they can have things like glass cups or jugs or tableware that you could use from that end. We have packaging. There's a lot of noise about packaging with nylon. That's nylon, you just use it once and you're done with it. Why not say, okay, and nylon, most of the time, it doesn't So it's not biodegradable, meaning it does not decompose into something else and help anybody. It often stays there, which is why you see a lot of pure water nylons around. Now, this particular company, Printer and Packer, has said that, okay, let's make packaging items from banana leaves rather, and hyacinths. Now, let's focus on the banana leaves. They've taken banana leaves and said, okay, we've made this thing into bags that we can use to package products. So what we need now is producers of other products to say we are opting for this kind of packaging as opposed to our nylons. Or they just use paper packaging for items because paper is degradable. We have construction. For construction, we have instances where a company says paper waste from bottles, from books, and so on and so forth. We're going to put it together and we're going to make ceiling boards out of it. So instead of saying that, okay, we just go look for the materials, so maybe cement or slate and all that to make ceiling tiles, we make it from paper waste. Energy, we have people making energy sources, solar panels, using batteries and e-waste materials that have existed in the past. The person that talked about, okay, when I was mentioning the plastic idea, there are also people that do stuff in fashion. So for fashion, they've taken items such as, so when you have a tailor that has, when you have a tailor that sews your clothes and has a lot of cutouts from trying to shape the clothes or style the clothes, we have people who in their company say, okay, those particular waste fabric, we'll use them to make pillows, or we'll use them to design shoes that people can wear outside. So these are people that are taking typical things that would have been waste materials, instead of looking for new materials, making them into items that people can use once again. It can even be as simple as teaching other people, because that's something about circular economy. So closet sales, for example, they teach people how to decluster their clothes. So how to choose which clothes you want to keep and use, rather than having bags full of clothes that you cannot go through in 5 years, and so on and so forth. So those are just some examples in different sectors where you have people doing things with circular economy. We're supposed to watch a video, but our time is fast spent, so I'll just move into sustainable waste management, and I'll show you how it ties into circular economy. Sustainable waste management is just focused on how you can reduce the impact of waste in the environment. It's quite different from circular economy, but they have similar focal points. Circular economy is more focused on how we can push waste completely. Like, how can we design things and there will be no waste at the end of the day? Sustainable waste management says that we already have waste that is existing. However, how can we manage this waste effectively so that it doesn't harm the environment, it doesn't harm us as human beings, and we are able to recover resources? Because if circular economy is saying that, okay, I need to design out waste, it means that whatever the output, that's what you typically call waste, is there should be a way to recover it. And the only way to recover it is if we are able to manage it properly. We're going to talk about waste hierarchy. Now, waste hierarchy is what, I don't know if you've heard of the R's. So there were 3 R's of sustainability. Yeah, I think so. So there were 3 R's of sustainability, sustainable waste management or circular economy. Then there were 4, then there were 5, then there were 6. So there are so many today. Typically, they are just called R's because all the words sort of start with an R. But I found another name for it, which is called waste hierarchy. So what this one does for you is it sort of teaches you how to properly and effectively, in a responsible manner, dispose waste items, or how to treat things in general. The first one is reduce. And when you hear the word reduce, what it does to you is it just tells you prevention. How many of us have gone to, again with the weddings, I have no idea why this is what's coming to my mind, weddings, seminars, events where they give out souvenirs. Now, in such a situation, a lot of times we are very greedy and we like to say, let's have extra, let's have extra, let's have extra. For reduce now, to prevent waste, you need to say, okay, Instead of me taking what I don't need, and I've mentioned before, how can I reduce how much I take? So how can I say no? So in reduce, you are typically saying no to a lot of things. So you say no to what you don't need. And for those of us that are very futuristic in our thinking, like me, that will say, I don't know when I will need it. It means that you need to be a better planner to be able to identify when will I probably need this thing, and how am I sure that I will not get something at that point in time, instead of piling up things in my house that I don't need right now. So that's one angle of reduce for the consumer. For the producer, it means that we package less. So instead of packaging things with 70 wrappers and then the thing that is inside is very tiny, how can we package it less? Because most times you find that the packaging of something is more than the actual product that is inside. So that's one angle of reduce, because when you do that, you're actually gathering more waste or taking more energy to produce the things that will eventually not be used. So for waste management, that's the first thought. How can I reduce? You can reduce by bulk buying instead of always buying at every point in time. We found that most companies today do a lot of refill. So you have a Milo tin in your house, and then instead of going to buy another Milo tin, you refill. So you can just get the refill, use one container and keep refilling that container. But there are debates about that as well. I won't go into that for the sake of our time. Then we have reuse. So what if you've gotten the item already? What can you do with the item? You can reuse it. You can reuse it over and over and over again. You can reuse it as something else. I remember something about the plastic bottle. We teach. So I used to like using, I don't know where it came from, but I found that at the end of this, there are two uses for this bottle for me. We either use it as water bottles, we use it to store drinks in our fridge, so things like Zobo and homemade products. I said two, but then more ideas are coming. Or I can actually cut this into two and use this one, the top part, as a funnel, and use the bottom part as a storage material for my pencils, my biros, and my items. For the agri class, we can use this to teach people how to plant crops, so how to plant beans and maize in the early production stage. So you find that there are ways for you to keep thinking, how can we reuse items? That's for plastic, and that's because we are just trying to create excuses for plastic. I beg your pardon. So apart from plastics, what else can we reuse? We can reuse our phones. You are tired of using your phone. What do you do typically? You can give it to somebody else to use, or you could sell it and then get a buyer for that particular item. That's one way we reuse. I know a lot of people have had situations of hand-me-downs, and that's a negative, it has a negative connotation to it, where you are reusing somebody's clothes. But the positive light to that is, by reusing clothes, you're actually helping the environment, because what would have happened is somebody would have just taken those clothes, worn it, and then dumped it. So instead of it being like, oh, it's a poverty thing, because that's what a lot of people grew up with. If I use something that somebody else has used, it means that I am not better. I am, the least among my brethren. That's not the case. When you're actually reusing it, you're actually doing a positive thing to the environment. So I think that what you could also do is help with the mindset, which is what you are doing already. So you help change the mindset of the younger generation towards things. Reuse, maintenance culture, and that is something I feel that we should begin to teach in primary schools, secondary schools, even universities. Maintenance culture. The problem with our roads, sorry about diverting, the problem with our roads, the problem with a lot of things, apart from it being a money issue, people wanting to keep money in their pockets, is a situation where people were not taught how to maintain. So there's no maintenance culture. Even when people start up things, you see a lot of shop owners, when they rent their shop and have a lot of things there, they don't have the mind to maintain those things. So things go bad and they keep postponing. But if from the beginning they are taught in their minds that, okay, there should be a way to reuse. In fact, you should have a budget somewhere to maintain things, to repair it, to refurbish it if needed. It makes it much more easier to say, okay, we are achieving, or we are taking positive actions to helping the environment. Then we have recovery. Okay, let's do recycling first. So recycling is what I've mentioned a lot of, where you take materials that are waste product and turn them into new items. And you can do it for so many things: glass, clothes, construction materials, carpentry, waste products, and so on and so forth. But when recycling fails, you have recovery, and then you have disposal. Excuse me, please. Now, for recovery, this typically works with energy. When you say, okay, we can recycle some items, you can take them, e.g., we have things like food waste. For food waste, instead of us wasting the food, we can take it through a series of composting methods and turn it into something that can be put back into the soil and make it nutritious so that other plants can grow from it. That's on one end. It can also be used to make biogas. So where you have food waste and then it goes through a particular machine and it makes it gas that can be used to power houses, to power the very, very restaurants that probably had the food waste. So that's another angle to look at items. It all depends on the item. And then at the very least, the worst part is now the disposal, where you eventually have to throw things in landfills. Before, we just had from production to landfills most of the time. But now you can also say, okay, landfills can be modernized to say, how do we make landfills not as, how do I put it? I know we've seen landfills before. They are really smelly, and they just look like heaps of things that nobody ever wanted at some point. Now, rather than doing that, there's a way to modernize landfills, either to construct it in such a way that the things that we are putting there are things that we've ensured that nothing else can happen to them. And if possible, over time, say that there are gases that can be produced from those particular items. Okay. Okay, we have waste minimization. I was looking at the time. So we have waste minimization and reduction. So in our homes, what can we typically do? We mentioned a lot: buy in bulk, reuse items or reuse reusable containers, avoid single-use products. Why? Because it helps the environment, it conserves resources, and then it reduces the amount of waste that is in the landfills. I think this is, we're rounding up now. Now, what are the types of waste and the appropriate management strategy? A lot of us in our homes still put our waste together. That is, we don't separate waste. So we have papers, the children have torn papers and everything, and we put it in the same dustbin with the nylon bags. We still put it in the same trash with plastics, and then they have leftover food, and then they put it inside that same container. And then the person that comes to pick it up has no use for it because it's very difficult to begin to separate food from paper, from plastic, and so on and so forth. So what happens to this particular solid waste? Municipal solid waste. What is it, first of all? It's waste that is generated by household, by institutions. It's everyday materials, packaging, food, textile, and so on and so forth. The very first way to handle that kind of waste is to separate at the source. So I'm looking forward to foreseeing a time where we begin to have things like where it will not be news to see 4 trash cans. Maybe not all in the same room because it might look very bulky, but you have points where you are supposed to put your waste and it's like 4 trash cans so that you can separate your plastic and it goes to whoever is dealing with plastic waste, from paper, from glass, from metal, and even from food. Because source separation is one of the best ways to handle waste itself. Now, when you are done with source separation, you compose food and yard waste. So the waste in your environment, mentioned a lot, you compose that one. Then landfilling for non-recyclable or non-decomposable items. Still under types of waste, we have 2 types again. We have biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste. Biodegradable waste, any waste that is organic. It can break down with natural processes. You don't have to add any chemical, you don't have to add anything to it. That's biodegradable waste. Now, non-biodegradable waste are waste that they cannot naturally break down. They take a long time to do so. And typically things like plastic and metal fall under this. And we've talked about it already. You can source separate. When you are done with source separating, you can begin to recycle those particular materials. Or you do waste to energy incineration to recover energy. That's for non-biodegradable waste. For biodegradable waste, composting or anaerobic digestion for waste and for energy recovery. Now, what's the difference between the municipal solid waste or just solid waste and this other two? It's just about categorization. The way you have types and then you have kinds. And sometimes it's a bit confusing, but it's not. It's just different ways to group it. Sometimes what is a part of one group might be a sub-part of another group, or it might stand alone. So those are just different things, and it just helps you break it down into simpler forms. Plastic waste. So plastic waste now will typically fall under non-biodegradable waste, and it will still fall under solid waste because it's solid, but it's also non-biodegradable. The process is still the same. Source reduction, recycling, and then also initiatives so that we can promote alternatives to plastic. Now, textile waste is similar, but if you watch, textile waste is gradually gaining grounds. It's not very common. So it's gradually gaining grounds where you find a lot of people beginning to do things, sensible things with their textile waste. So we have where in arts and crafts class, we teach kids how to make maybe pillows from the materials. We even have businesses today that are set up that make throw pillows from textile waste. We have people that combine tires. So tires that have been used already that are no more usable, they combine tires and then fabrics that are no more usable to make tableware. So things like ottomans that are in houses, and then maybe decorative chairs from waste products. So it means that you can combine two waste items together to make a whole new product that can be used for a longer period of time. Or you could donate and resell clothes. There are businesses today that deal with, not businesses though, NGOs that deal with donations of clothes and then also reselling of used clothes. And then we have e-waste. E-waste, like I mentioned, your electronics, your smartphones, your blenders, and so on and so forth. E-waste is a special category of waste because it often contains hazardous materials, harmful materials. It can contain things like lead, mercury, cadmium. Those things are actually very dangerous. So whenever you see someone that is just breaking apart his or her phone or the items around them without proper guidance or regulations, it's quite dangerous both to the person's health and to the environment, which is why we have a lot of scavengers that come around to collect items or even to buy irons and so on and so forth. How do you manage electronic waste? Proper collection. There are collection points, there are collection centers. There are these scavengers that go around collecting items. They often report back or sell it off to authorized e-waste facilities. So those are some of the way. And then recovery of valuable material. E-waste is one product that is very complicated. If you look at your phone or your device, you will find that there is plastic, there is metal, there is glass. So it's like different products were joined together to make it. So when it comes to separating it, the plastic itself has a particular use, the metal has a particular use, the glass has a particular use. Most of the time they are broken, even the motherboard has a particular use. So they are broken into different parts and sent to the proper sources. And then we have construction or demolition waste. When you are building houses and so on, and when you are building houses, you typically have wood left over from the roofing, you have blocks, you have cement, all those type of waste, they can be used to do something. And when you think about construction, a lot of times it is said that the construction industry had a lot of contribution to make to causing the issues we are having with the environment today, because we have a lot of buildings that are just erected, which is beautiful, but then when those buildings are probably demolished to make new items, no consideration is made as to what happens. So what happens to those blocks? Nowadays, I find that, okay, people use them to fill when they are constructing. So they use all those broken pieces to fill. But apart from filling the new building that you are erecting, what else can those things be used for? So we have management strategies for that. We have on-site separation for reuse and recycling. We have disposals of non-reusable or recyclable waste in designated landfills. So I'm going to ask you some questions. You can drop it in the chat. Sorry, we've not used the chat. I find I'm running against time. I haven't been looking at the chat box. So I was going to ask a question. I don't know, what other types of waste can you think about? Because we've not mentioned quite a lot of waste. So maybe you mention for me, what other types of waste can you think about? Okay, use tires. So you could just leave those comments for me. What other types of waste can you think about? Chemical waste, awesome. We have chemical waste, we have industrial waste, and we have biodegradable waste, beautiful. Tins and cans, yes, we have those as well. I think they'll fall under metals. Agricultural waste, nuclear waste, awesome, awesome. So there are so many types of waste, and they have different processes of disposing them. They don't all get disposed the same way. We have human waste, yes. So so we have different types of waste, and they do not have the same system. So I think that's one thing we need to educate people on. They do not have the same system of disposing them. The same way we are advised today not to use paper to maybe wipe ourselves when we're done with the restroom and then throw it inside, because it's not the same process. You understand? It's the same way we can begin to teach and say, okay, the way you look at it, medical waste, for example, it's very difficult to find medical waste in your houses because they have regulations as to how they dispose the injections, the syringes, all those things that they use. So, okay, I think we're almost there. Let me check. Sorry. So I think they will share the slide with you so you could watch the videos in your own free time. There are a lot of interesting videos there as well. So we're rounding up now. I think I should be done in 5-10 minutes now.
So sorry to cut you.
Yes.
You still have to 5:55, so we can still run.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so integrating circular economy and sustainable waste management. This big English simply means, where do their similarities lie? So circular economy, design out waste, don't just focus on recycling alone. Sustainable waste materials, ensure that you are recovering waste management, rather ensure that you are recovering the waste appropriately so that it can be used again. Where do they intersect? They intersect, one, because they have shared objectives. Both of them are just focused on creating a more sustainable and resilient economy. The focus of both of them is that we want an economy that is resilient. When trying times come, we want to be able to withstand those issues. When the issues of global warming come up, we want to be able to say that we've done our best to ensure that we are not affected too negatively, because we've already been affected, but we're not affected so much by those things. We've been able to put things up in place that help. Waste as a resource. That's another point where both of these items converge. Waste is actually a resource. If you look at it, we say one man food is another man poison. I don't know where that came from, but yeah. So waste has a potential to be reclaimed, reused, repurposed for something else. The important thing there is that rather than hide, because a lot of producers are hiding, it's no secret, they are hiding under the banner of we can reuse it, and then they don't reuse it. That's why you are encouraged to say, instead of just that, if there are new things you can create out of it, and those become standard items that people use today, or that is essential in every home, create it. Don't hide behind the banner of, since it can be reused, we can just keep making things that are harmful. That's like creating a solution that is actually a problem. So that's another thing that circular economy and waste management look at. Then design for circularity. There are a lot more, but I chose to stop there. Design for circularity. A lot of times people think about design and say maybe only architects design, or only what's it called? Only architects design, or only engineers design. Not really. In some way, everybody designs. How do you design? Say maybe as a school owner now, I feel though they don't. So I'm going to give an example just off the top of my head. Don't quote me. So one of the ways we can say we're designing for circularity is, you know how there are so many schools around and almost everywhere. Now, the fact that there are schools, say every 1 kilometer from homes, in a way it could be a design for circularity. Because children can choose to walk to schools instead of having to ride, cars, vehicles, because those cars and vehicles are releasing harmful emission to the environment. So they are releasing greenhouse gases to the environment and harming the environment. So ideally, in a setup where there are schools everywhere, I am feeling that the design of having schools everywhere should be that people attend schools within their community, not outside of their community. However, you and I would agree that that concept is flawed, or that was not what they were thinking, Sha. When they were doing that one. We are the ones thinking it right now, but that was probably not what they were thinking when they designed that. But that's a way we can look at it. Another way could be that when you are setting up collection points, you set up collection points close to people, or you have one particular time that everybody is aware that they can come drop things, which is what we find when waste management trucks come to markets. They have particular days that they come to markets to take those things. So we have some systems. What I'm trying to say is we have some systems and processes that are set up already that sort of fit into circularity. However, it's flawed because that probably wasn't what they were thinking. And how can we solve that? We can say what is already existing. Instead of making new solutions that probably will cause more problem, how do we use what is existing and weave it in such a way that it works? I don't know if I'm making sense to somebody. A lot of times we like the new when the old is not spoiled. How do we take what is existing and working and make it work better? That's something that both circular economy and sustainable waste management look at. So this is just a series of notes. So I just talk quickly on this one. Collaboration and education. Let's talk about education first, so that if we don't have time, we just talk a bit about collaboration. So what's the role of education for circular economy? Which is what I'm sure that you've been wondering, because I've talked about producers, I've talked about consumers. So like I said earlier, I said that educators are shaping the minds of the younger generation. I feel like not many people realize how much power they have. Don't misuse it. But you have so much power in your hands because you can drive behavioral change. Yes, you might be restricted by the curriculum, you might be restricted by the understanding of those above you, but still there are simple ways you can incorporate these things, because the role of education to both circular economy and sustainable waste management is that you drive behavioral change. Now, when you teach, they say adults are technically unteachable. I don't know how true that is. I feel we should all maintain some level of teachability. When you teach someone or a child or a young adult a particular principle and it's drummed or repeated over and over again to that person's subconsciousness, and the person sees it in action, there's a tendency that that person begins to act that particular way, which now attracts the attention of those around him or her to want to emulate such quality. So that is us as individuals, as teachers, as people who have the key in our hands. We act a certain way, so our own behaviors have to change. And when we are acting a certain way, we teach the way we are acting. So actions speak louder than words. It's not enough to say it. You act it, they see you emulate it, and so it begins to ripple. So it begins to have a chain reaction where one person's doing affects the other person. Another one is promoting awareness. We cannot do enough. So like There's not enough awareness, or we cannot do over awareness. There's always going to be somebody that needs to hear what you have to say. There's always going to be spaces. I think the problem is most of the time we're telling people that already know something, the same thing over and over again. So the role of education is not to reach out to those who already know alone, but to reach out to those that don't know and promote these particular things, because people need to understand. It's as simple rather as simplifying concepts, as making it simple, as saying that this is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and probably it ends there. That is that one. And then the role of education still extends to industries and businesses. We have different forms of teachers. I feel once you are impacting knowledge, you are a teacher. Once you're responsible and somebody is listening to you in some way, you're a teacher. So you are not limited. So education is important for all these things: behavioral change, promoting awareness, engaging the future generations, and so on and so forth. Collaboration. You can't do it alone, which is why we said, yes, there are a lot of people over you or over us that probably their actions can limit us. But in circular economy, one of the main things, if you're going to achieve that circle, you need to collaborate. It's like hand holding hands to form a big circle. You need to collaborate. And what makes people collaborate, businesses, for example, is shared goals. So what are our shared goals? How can we, keep on working together? How can we say, okay, this is what I need, and this is what you have. Let's do a trade by barter, sort of. And then also there's supply chain engagement. There are different levels of the supply chain, even to sourcing materials. We have something that we do. Okay, my time is almost off. It's up already. So we have something that we do where we say, okay, we want to source the materials. How can we source materials that are sustainable in nature? And then how can we minimize waste? For the government, if they don't make policies that work, like the person that mentioned something about SON, if they don't set up enforcement, if they don't do infrastructural investment, because a lot of times we need money for campaigns, we need money for recycling facilities. If all these things are not set up, it's like we're just talking. So those things need to be set up. And then for communities, there is local engagement. That's, like I said, when you're able to impact one person, the person goes and then impacts the other person with the knowledge that he or she has gained. That's how we affect communities. So communities of people through local engagement, through actual showing of the process of separating waste. It can be as simple as having 4 nylon bags, or whenever you want to dispose waste, you gather it for a period of time and then you go and you dispose it. So very simple stuff. We don't need to wait for the big buckets or the big trash cans to come. We can do it in simple ways, and show people how to do it. We can do swap events. So you swap something you have. I know something that is very popular, Give a Book to a Child initiative. So where you have people that have books that they finish using, so you've graduated from a particular class, instead of throwing those books away or giving it to the puff seller, you say, okay, I'm giving or I'm donating this book to another kid. Let this child use this book for something else. So it can be as simple as that. It's when we keep rising in ranks of power, we begin to have more opportunities to do more. But that doesn't mean that we cannot start now. And then consumer demand. So I hope that I've been able to enlighten you and share something useful with everyone here as to what circular economy is and what sustainable waste management is, and how that you can start now to begin to do things. So it can be as simple as I said, it can be as simple as upcycling materials. Upcycling is creating items that are products in houses from existing material without having to go through a lot of, how would I put it, manufacturing processes. So you don't need big machines to achieve that. Recycling, a lot of times you need big machines to achieve some sort of recycling. Okay, I think this is where I'm going to stop. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening.
How are we doing? It's been a very long learning section. I mean, there's a lot that we've learned today. Madam Deborah, we want to appreciate you for being on the call with us. We really want to appreciate you that we called and you responded. I mean, the fellows have actually gained tremendously from today's sections, and on behalf of the leadership of the AIIDEV Africa, we really want to appreciate you for coming, for joining us today on the call, and for the wonderful delivery. We want to appreciate you. We really do appreciate you, and we hope that when we call, when we beckon on you again, you will respond to us. Thank you very much for the delivery today. We really appreciate you. Because of our time, we may not be able to be taking much questions, but like I would normally say, we really appreciate your questions, and every question is very important. So kindly note down those questions, reach out to any of the admins or any of the leaderships, communicate in your groups, and share with your team members. We'll be glad to respond to your questions and attend to you appropriately. Thank you very much. So we'll move straight to the announcement. The last training sections for the foundation phase holds next week, Thursday. So let's get prepared. Let's plan and prepare. That will be on the 14th of March, next month, same time. Kindly note that the assessment and knowledge evaluation will be conducted next week, Saturday at 5 p.m. So let's prepare. The evaluation and assessment will be conducted next week, Saturday by 5 p.m. This will be an online assessment covering all you have learned during the foundation phase. So save the date. That will be on the 15th of March. So you'll be communicated to by mails. So stay close to your mail and stay close to your group. So don't miss this, and there won't be any makeup. So kindly plan and prepare for this assessment. It's very important, and this will be a determinant to know if you will be progressing to the next phase of the Teach4SDG program. So like I mentioned earlier on, for those who has actually been very faithful and committed and have been following with the sections, I don't think you have a problem. I mean, you won't have a problem because you'll be following. And for you who has peradventure missed the section, you may want to visit our YouTube page and look out, check on the sections, and so as to make up. So I wish everyone success, and I wish you a productive week and a month ahead. So see you next week, and I wish you success in your assessment. Thank you very much for joining on the call today. Do have a very wonderful day.